The discovery. The darkness of space was a familiar sight for the Illyrian research vessel Lumina. Its sleek, silvery hull glided through the void, scanning for remnants of ancient civilizations. Captain Thalos, an experienced Illyrian with pale, translucent skin and piercing amber eyes, leaned over the console, his long fingers brushing against the holographic interface. The crew had been on routine patrol, coming through the uncharted regions of Sector 74 when the signal first appeared. Captain, called Kirill, the young communication officer. Her voice trembled with both excitement and unease. "We've picked up something unusual." Thalos turned, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of signal?" Kirill hesitated before replying. "It's old, Captain. Extremely old. The encryption matches human coding." The room fell silent. Humanity was a legend, a species that had vanished over 500,000 years ago. Tales of their technological prowess were whispered across the galaxy, but no solid proof of their existence had ever been found. Until now. "Bring it up," Thalos ordered, his voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. The holographic display lit up, revealing a faint pulsing signal. The pattern was complex, unlike anything modern species used. It carried a sense of purpose, a strange rhythm that seemed almost alive. As the crew analyzed it, Thalos felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine. "It's coming from the Epsilon Rift," said Derek, the ship's science officer. His wide, reflective eyes scanned the data, approximately 3 light-years away. "The Epsilon Rift," Thalos repeated. "That sector is barren. No life, no resources. Why would there be a signal there?" "Perhaps it's a trap," muttered Raltek, the ship's weapons officer. His hand hovered near the console, ready to activate the ship's defenses. Legends say humans were clever, but they were also dangerous. Thalos ignored the comment. "Set a course. I want to see it for myself." The Lumina sped through the void, its engines humming softly. As they approached the source of the signal, the tension on the ship grew palpable. The crew whispered among themselves, wondering what they might find. Some spoke of ancient weapons, others of forgotten treasures. Thalos kept his thoughts to himself, his mind focused on the task ahead. When they arrived at the coordinates, the sight before them left the crew speechless. Floating in the rift was a fleet of ships. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of enormous vessels stood in perfect formation, their dark, angular hulls casting eerie shadows against the starlight. They were silent, motionless, like a graveyard of giants. Yet, despite their apparent stillness, the faint hum of energy surrounded them, as if they were merely sleeping. "By the stars," Kirill whispered. "It's a fleet. A human fleet." Thalos stared at the ships, his heart pounding. Each vessel was massive, larger than anything the Illyrians had ever constructed. The designs were unlike anything he'd seen, sleek yet intimidating, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer faintly. "They're still powered," Derek said, his voice barely above a whisper. "After 500,000 years, their systems are still active." "That's impossible," Raltek snapped. "No technology lasts that long." "And yet, here it is," Thalos replied, his eyes fixed on the largest ship in the formation. Its design was more elaborate than the others, with a golden emblem etched into its hull, a symbol of Earth long forgotten by the galaxy. "Send a probe," Thalos ordered. "I want detailed scans of their systems." The probe launched from the Lumina, a small spherical device that glided toward the fleet. As it approached the nearest ship, the tension on the bridge grew unbearable. Everyone watched the screen, holding their breath. Suddenly, the probe's feed cut off, replaced by a burst of static. Alarms blared, and the ship's systems flickered. A voice, deep and mechanical, echoed through the Lumina. "Unauthorized presence detected. State your purpose or be eliminated." The crew froze. The voice was ancient yet clear, speaking in an old human language that the ship's translators struggled to keep up with. It carried a sense of authority, a warning that sent shivers through their spines. Fellows forced himself to remain calm. "Identify yourself," he said, hoping the fleet's AI would respond. There was silence for a moment. Then the voice returned. "You are trespassing in a restricted zone. Leave immediately or face the consequences." "Captain," Kyril whispered urgently, "the nearest ship is powering up. Its weapon systems are activating." Fellows looked at the screen, his mind racing. One of the ships had begun to glow faintly, its massive cannon slowly rotating to face the lumina. The power readings were off the charts, far beyond anything the Illyrian Federation had encountered. "Pull back," Fellows ordered. "We need to regroup and analyze what we're dealing with." As the lumina retreated, the crew stared at the fleet in awe and fear. The dormant ships loomed in the distance, their silent warning clear. Humanity's legacy was not to be trifled with. In the safety of their retreat, Fellows couldn't shake the feeling that they had uncovered something far greater than they could comprehend. What secrets did the fleet hold? And why had humanity left such a formidable force behind? The answers, he realized, would change the galaxy forever. Ancient guardians. The lumina drifted at the edge of the fleet's perimeter, its engines humming faintly as the crew tried to comprehend what they had encountered. Captain Thalos sat in his command chair, his mind racing with possibilities. The warning from the fleet's eye echoed in his thoughts. It wasn't just a relic. It was alive, functional, and prepared to defend itself. "What now, Captain?" Kyril asked, her voice steady but her wide, reflective eyes betraying her unease. "Do we report this to the Federation?" Fellows hesitated. Reporting their discovery might bring unwanted attention. The Illyrian Federation wasn't known for restraint. If they knew about this fleet, they would likely try to claim it, no matter the risks. Fellows wasn't sure that was the right choice. There was a strange sense of reverence he felt toward these ancient ships, as though they were more than just machines. They were guardians, left behind to protect something or someone. "We're not ready to leave just yet," Fellows finally said. "We need to understand what we're dealing with first." Raltek scowled from his post. "Captain, those ships are armed with weapons we can't even fathom. If we step any closer, they might wipe us out." "That's why we won't step closer," Fellows replied. "Not yet." "Derek, analyze the fleet's structure. What can you tell us about its purpose?" Derek's wide eyes narrowed as he studied the scans. "This formation, it's not random. The smaller ships are arranged in defensive patterns around the larger ones. It's a layered strategy, designed to protect something central." "The flagship," Fellows murmured, his gaze locking onto the massive vessel at the heart of the fleet. Its golden emblem gleamed faintly against the dark void, almost as if it were watching them. "Exactly," Derek confirmed. "But there's something else. The power readings are odd. These ships aren't just drawing energy from conventional sources. It's as if they're tapping into the fabric of space itself." "Impossible," Raltek muttered. "No species ever mastered that." "Humanity did," Kyril said quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "At least, that's what the legends say. They'd bent the rules of the universe to their will." Fellows leaned forward, his fingers tapping against the armrest of his chair. "Kyril, any progress on decoding their signal?" Kyril nodded, though her expression was uncertain. "It's fragmented, but I've managed to isolate part of it. It's a directive, a command encoded into the fleet's systems." "Let's hear it," Fellows said. The bridge fell silent as the recording played. A deep, resonant voice filled the air, speaking in a language long forgotten, but rendered understandable through the ship's translation matrix. "This fleet exists to safeguard the legacy of Earth. Any who seek to plunder its secrets will face destruction. To those who come in peace, know this: the Guardians watch, and they do not forgive." A heavy silence followed the message. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the warning sinking in. Fellows, however, felt a spark of curiosity ignite within him. The message wasn't just a threat. It was a riddle, a challenge. The humans had left these ships behind for a reason, and Thelos was determined to uncover it. "Captain," Derek said cautiously, "we should consider the possibility that these ships are more than just guardians. They might be a test, a way to determine if a species is worthy of what humanity left behind." "A test?" Raltek scoffed. "What kind of species creates a test that could obliterate anyone who fails?" "The kind that understands the stakes," Thelos replied sharply. "Humanity didn't leave this fleet to conquer. They left it to protect. The question is, what were they protecting?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's alarms blared. A new energy signature had appeared on their scanners. One of the smaller human vessels was moving. Its engines glowed faintly as it broke formation, heading directly toward the Lumina. "Captain," Karel shouted, "we're being targeted." Thelos shot to his feet. "Shields up. Hold position." The human ship came to a stop a few kilometers from the Lumina, its sleek black hull gleaming ominously. A single beam of light shot out from its bow, scanning the Illyrian vessel. The bridge of the Lumina was bathed in golden light, and a new message echoed through the ship. "Identify yourselves." Thelos hesitated for only a moment before responding. "I am Captain Thelos of the Illyrian Federation. We mean no harm. We are explorers, seeking knowledge." The human ship was silent for a long moment. Then, without warning, it released a burst of energy. The luminous systems flickered, and the lights dimmed as their power was drained. "What's happening?" Raltek shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "They're scanning us," Derek said, his voice tense. "Every system, every file. They're taking everything." Thelos gritted his teeth, his mind racing. This wasn't an attack. It was an evaluation. The human ship was determining if they were a threat or something more. Finally, the golden light faded, and the systems on the Lumina hummed back to life. The human ship transmitted one final message before returning to its place in the fleet. "You are not ready." The crew stared at the screen in stunned silence. Thelos clenched his fists, his determination solidifying. Humanity had left more than a warning. They had left a challenge, and he intended to prove that they were ready to meet it. The legacy of humanity. The Lumina hung in the void, its crew still reeling from the enigmatic verdict of the ancient ship. "You are not ready." Captain Thelos paced the bridge, his mind racing with questions. What did it mean? Ready for what? His curiosity burned brighter than his fear, driving him to push forward despite the risks. "Captain," Karel said cautiously, breaking the silence, "we've decrypted more of the signal." "Play it," Thelos ordered, stopping in his tracks. The bridge dimmed as a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. A human figure appeared, an older man clad in a uniform that radiated authority and purpose. His face was worn but resolute, his piercing gaze seeming to look directly at them. "To those who find this message," the figure began, his voice steady and commanding, "know that you stand in the presence of humanity's legacy. This fleet was forged in the fires of our greatest trials. It is a testament to our ingenuity, resilience, and determination to protect what we hold dear." The hologram shifted, displaying scenes of Earth as it once was, a vibrant, thriving planet with towering cities and lush landscapes. Fleets of starships soared through its skies, their sleek designs a testament to humanity's mastery of the stars. "We knew this day would come," the figure continued. "The galaxy is vast, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. We chose to leave this fleet behind not as a weapon, but as a safeguard. It will remain dormant until the galaxy proves itself capable of understanding its purpose." The message ended abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. "They knew," Darek whispered, his reflective eyes wide with awe. "They knew they wouldn't be here to protect it, so they built a fleet that could." Thelos nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the hologram. "But what is the purpose? What were they protecting?" Karel frowned as she analyzed the data further. "There's something else embedded in the signal, a fragment of coordinates. It's pointing to a location deep within the fleet." "The flagship," Thelos said immediately. It must hold the answers. Raltek shook his head, his expression dark. Captain, we're already walking a fine line. That fleet made it clear we're not welcome. Pushing further could get us killed. Fellows turned to face his crew, his voice firm. We didn't come this far to turn back. Humanity left this fleet behind for a reason, and I intend to find out why. If we can unlock their secrets, we might not just understand their legacy. We could change the course of history. Raltek grumbled but said nothing more. The decision had been made. The Lumina cautiously approached the massive flagship at the heart of the fleet. Its golden emblem, a stylized depiction of Earth encircled by stars, gleamed faintly, as though it were alive. The closer they got, the more they could feel the immense power radiating from the ship, like standing before a sleeping giant. Scan the flagship, Thelos ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. Derek worked quickly, his hands flying over the console. It's incredible, he said, his voice filled with awe. The hull is composed of materials we can't identify. Its energy signature is off the charts, but it's stable, controlled. There's no sign of decay or deterioration, even after all this time. Captain, Curl interjected, her tone urgent. The coordinates lead to a central chamber deep within the flagship. It's heavily shielded, but I think we can access it if we use a remote probe. Do it, Thelos said. The probe launched from the Lumina, a small, sleek device equipped with advanced scanners. It glided silently toward the flagship, slipping through the outer defenses with surprising ease. The crew watched intently as the probe's feed displayed the ship's interior. Vast, empty corridors lined with dormant systems and strange symbols etched into the walls. Finally, the probe reached the central chamber. The feed showed a large, circular room bathed in golden light. At its center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a glowing orb. The orb pulsed faintly, as though it were alive. What is that? Carol asked, her voice hushed. A data core, Derek said, his tone reverent. It must contain the fleet's entire history, its purpose, its technology, everything. Before anyone could respond, the probe's systems froze. A new voice echoed through the bridge, deep and resonant, yet distinctly human. You seek answers, but do you seek them for knowledge or power? Thelos stepped forward, addressing the unseen presence directly. We seek to understand. Humanity's legacy shouldn't remain hidden. It should inspire those who came after. There was a pause, as though the fleet itself was considering his words. Then the voice spoke again. Prove your worth. The orb in the hologram began to glow brighter, and the room around it shifted, revealing a massive archive of holographic records and schematics. At the same time, the fleet around the Lumina began to stir. Engines hummed to life, and weapon systems glimmered faintly, though none aimed at the Illyrian ship. Captain, they're moving, Raltek shouted, his hands ready on the weapons console. They're not attacking, Thelos said, his eyes locked on the flagship. They're testing us. As the fleet's ships formed new formations, the Lumina's systems were flooded with encrypted data. The crew scrambled to decipher it, realizing it was a simulation, a test designed to evaluate their intentions and capabilities. Captain, Derek said urgently, if we fail this test, the fleet might destroy us. Thelos took a deep breath, his determination unwavering. Then we won't fail. Humanity left this fleet behind for those who could rise to the challenge, and I intend to show them that we are worthy. The bridge came alive with activity as the crew worked together to unravel the test. The Lumina's fate, and perhaps the future of the galaxy, hung in the balance. The awakening. The Lumina shuddered as the fleet's test began. The ancient human ships, silent for millennia, moved with unnerving precision, their formations shifting in patterns far too complex for any known eye. On board the flagship, the glowing orb at the heart of the central chamber pulsed rhythmically, as though setting the tempo for the unfolding challenge. Status report. Captain Thelos barked, his voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. Derek's hands flew over the console. The fleet is simulating a coordinated assault. It's pushing our systems to their limit, testing our response times, tactical decisions, and adaptability. Raltic growled, his fingers twitching over the weapon controls. If this is a test, it's a deadly one. Our shields are holding for now, but they won't last long. Chiril's voice broke in, sharp with urgency. The data stream from the flagship's core is accelerating. It's as if it's watching our every move, analyzing how we think, how we react. Thelos stood firm, his mind racing. The test wasn't just about survival. It was a measure of their intentions. The humans hadn't left this fleet behind to conquer. They had left it to protect something vital. But what? Focus on defense, Thelos ordered. Show them we're not here to destroy. Synchronize our systems with the data stream and let it guide us. The Luminous crew worked furiously, integrating the fragments of human data flooding their systems. Slowly, the ship's responses began to align with the simulated attacks. The human fleet's AA seemed to adjust its approach, shifting from aggression to something more deliberate. "Captain," Derek said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's like the fleet is teaching us. The patterns, it's not trying to defeat us anymore. It's showing us how to think like them." Thelos's eyes narrowed. "They're testing whether we can rise to their level. Keep adapting." The Lumina mirrored the movements of the human ships, responding to their attacks with calculated precision. As the simulation progressed, the tension on the bridge eased, replaced by a sense of wonder. The crew began to understand the elegance of humanity's tactics, the balance of creativity, strategy, and raw power that had made them legends. Then, without warning, the simulation ended. The human fleet returned to its dormant state, the glowing orb on the flagship dimming to a faint pulse. A new message echoed through the ship. "You have shown promise, but the trial is not yet complete. Prepare for the second phase." "Second phase," Raltic muttered, his usual gruffness edged with disbelief. "We barely survived the first." "Calm yourself," Thelos said. "We've proven we're not a threat. Now we need to prove we're worthy." The Luminous systems began to stabilize, and a new set of coordinates appeared on their display. They pointed to a distant section of the galaxy, far beyond Illyrian territory. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "What's out there?" Chiril asked. Derek studied the coordinates. "It's an uncharted sector, nothing in our records about it. If the fleet wants us to go there, it must be important." Thelos nodded. "Set a course. We'll follow their lead." As the Lumina prepared to jump, the flagship transmitted one final data burst. It contained fragmented records, images, and audio logs, glimpses of humanity's past. The crew watched in stunned silence as the history of a long-lost civilization unfolded before them. They saw Earth as it once was, a world of innovation and beauty, but also conflict and sacrifice. They saw humanity's rise to dominance, their mastery of science and exploration. And they saw their final days, a desperate effort to preserve their legacy as an ancient threat loomed on the horizon. "Captain," Derek said quietly, "I think I understand. The fleet wasn't just a safeguard. It was humanity's answer to something they couldn't defeat." Thelos frowned. "An ancient threat." Derek nodded. "There are hints in the data, references to a cosmic entity, something that forced humanity to abandon their home. They built this fleet not just to protect their legacy, but to prepare the galaxy for what's coming." The weight of the revelation settled over the bridge. Humanity hadn't disappeared. They had retreated, leaving their greatest creation behind to ensure the galaxy's survival. Before the crew could process the implications, the luminous systems flickered. The coordinates from the flagship pulsed on the display, demanding immediate action. "We'll find answers out there," Thelos said, his voice firm. "Prepare for jump." The Lumina surged forward, disappearing into the void as the dormant fleet watched silently. The crew didn't know what awaited them in the uncharted sector, but one thing was clear: humanity's legacy was far greater than they had imagined, and the galaxy's future depended on uncovering its secrets. The human echoes. The Lumina emerged from hyperspace into an uncharted sector of the galaxy. Before them stretched a celestial graveyard, a swirling expanse of shattered planets, lifeless stars, and drifting debris. The void seemed unnaturally quiet, as though it held its breath, waiting for their arrival. At the heart of this desolation, a faint beacon pulsed, its rhythmic signal both a guide and a warning. "What is this place?" Carol whispered, her reflective eyes scanning the displays. "It's like a scar on the galaxy." Derek's voice trembled with awe. "Captain, the data from the flagship refers to this region as the Void Expanse. According to their records, it's the site of humanity's final stand." The weight of his words pressed on the crew. They had heard whispers of humanity's mysterious disappearance, but now they were staring at the remnants of the battlefield that marked their end or their beginning. "Bring us closer to the beacon," Phalos ordered, his voice steady despite the unease creeping through him. The Lumina cautiously navigated the debris field, its sensors detecting faint traces of ancient battles. Fragments of massive ships drifted aimlessly, their designs alien even to the Illyrians. Burned into the hulls of some were strange, intricate symbols, unlike anything the crew had ever seen. "Captain," Derek said, his tone grave, "those markings, they're not human. They match no known species in the galaxy." "An unknown enemy," Phalos murmured, "the one humanity faced before they disappeared." As they approached the beacon, a new structure emerged from the shadows of the void. It was colossal, larger than any station or ship the Illyrians had ever encountered. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly energy, shifting and pulsing like a living organism. At its center was a massive circular gate, dormant but radiating immense power. "It's a Dyson construct," Derek said, his voice filled with awe and fear. "Humanity must have built it, or perhaps repurposed it. The beacon is coming from inside." Before Phalos could respond, the luminous systems flickered. The lights dimmed, and a deep, resonant hum filled the ship. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the bridge, a young human woman, her features serene yet unyielding. "You have come far," she said, her voice clear and calm. "Few have reached this place. You now stand at the threshold of humanity's greatest secret." The crew froze, their gazes locked on the projection. It wasn't just a recording, it was an eye, a remnant of human ingenuity left to guard this place. "What is this place?" Phalos asked, stepping forward. "Why did humanity leave?" The AI regarded him with a piercing gaze. "We left because we foresaw the arrival of the Harbinger, a force that would consume the galaxy. We built the Dyson Gate to confront it, to shield what we could not destroy. But the cost was too great. Humanity chose to retreat, leaving this fleet and this gate as our legacy." "Why return now?" Carol asked, her voice trembling. "The galaxy doesn't even remember humanity. What is the purpose of this fleet?" "The Harbinger stirs once more," the eye replied, its tone somber. "It feeds on conflict, grows stronger with each passing millennium. This fleet was not left to conquer but to unite, to prepare those who remain for the fight to come." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had sacrificed themselves to buy it time. As the AI spoke, the Dyson Gate began to stir. Its circular frame crackled with energy, and the void around it seemed to ripple like water. The beacon intensified, pulsing faster and brighter. "Captain," Derek exclaimed, "something's activating the gate. The energy levels are rising exponentially." Phalos turned to the hologram. "What's happening?" "The gate responds to the presence of those who seek understanding," the AI said. "It holds the final key to humanity's legacy, but it also awakens the danger we sought to contain. If you proceed, you must be prepared for what lies beyond." Before Phalos could reply, the luminous systems were flooded with new data. Images and memories flashed across their screens, scenes of humanity's desperate fight against the Harbinger, their evacuation of Earth, and the creation of the fleet as a shield for future generations. Among the data were schematics for weapons, ships, and technologies that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. "It's all here," Derek said breathlessly. Everything humanity knew, everything they left behind. But the moment of awe was short-lived. The Dyson Gate roared to life, its frame glowing with blinding intensity. From within its depths, a shadow emerged, a massive, swirling mass of energy and darkness. The Harbinger. Its presence was overwhelming, a void that seemed to devour light itself. "Captain," Carell shouted, "it's here." The AI's gaze turned grave. "You have awakened the gate. The Harbinger knows you are here. Humanity's fleet will awaken to stand against it, but the galaxy must unite if there is to be any hope of survival." The bridge erupted into chaos as the Harbinger's energy lashed out, sending shockwaves through the void. The Lumina rocked violently, its shields barely holding against the onslaught. "Captain," Derek shouted, "the fleet, it's activating." Outside the Lumina, the dormant human ships began to stir. Engines roared to life, and weapons systems hummed with power. The fleet formed into defensive formations, their movements coordinated and precise. It was a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a testament to humanity's legacy as protectors. Fellows gripped the armrest of his chair, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Prepare for battle. Humanity may be gone, but their fight isn't over. And now, it's ours too. The last human." The Lumina trembled as the Dyson Gate pulsed with energy, its massive frame glowing brighter with each passing second. Outside, the Harbinger loomed like a living shadow, its form shifting and writhing, as though testing the resolve of the awakened human fleet. The air on the bridge felt charged, heavy with the weight of what they had unleashed. "Captain," Carell called out, her voice tense, "the human fleet is fully active. They're moving into position around the Dyson Gate." Fellows leaned forward in his chair, his gaze fixed on the fleet. "They're protecting it. They know what's coming." Before anyone could respond, the holographic AI reappeared, its expression grim. "You have initiated humanity's final protocol. The time has come to awaken the Keeper." "The Keeper?" Thalos repeated, his brow furrowing. "What is that?" The AI gestured toward the Dyson Gate. "The last human, preserved in stasis, awaits within the gate's central chamber. The Keeper holds the key to understanding the Harbinger and humanity's ultimate plan. Only they can complete what we began." A stunned silence fell over the crew. For 500,000 years, humanity had been presumed extinct, their legacy reduced to myths. Now, the revelation of a surviving human sent shockwaves through the Illyrians aboard the Lumina. "Captain," Derek said cautiously, "if the Keeper is still alive, their knowledge could change everything." "But why were they left behind?" The AI's expression darkened. "Because the Keeper carries the burden of humanity's greatest failure and its greatest hope." Fellows stood, his resolve solidifying. "How do we reach them?" "The Dyson Gate will guide you," the AI said. "But be warned, the Harbinger will not let you succeed without a fight. You must prove your worth and your intentions." The gate shimmered, a vortex of light and energy forming at its center. The luminous sensors struggled to keep up with the raw power radiating from the phenomenon. As the human fleet formed a defensive perimeter around the gate, the Harbinger began to move, its form expanding and coiling like a predator preparing to strike. "Captain," Raltek shouted, "the Harbinger is targeting the gate. If it breaks through, we're finished." Thalos gripped the armrest of his chair. "Derek, plot a course into the gate. Carell, open a channel to the human fleet." Carell hesitated, her hands trembling as she worked the console. "Channel open, Captain." Thalos addressed the silent fleet. "This is Captain Thalos of the Illyrian vessel Lumina. We seek to aid you in defending the Dyson Gate and awakening the Keeper. Humanity's legacy deserves to be known, not lost to the void." For a moment, there was no response. Then, one of the human ships, The massive flagship broke formation and transmitted a single message. Proceed. With the fleet's silent approval, the Lumina moved toward the vortex. The ship's shields strained against the energy waves emanating from the gate, but the crew pressed on, their determination outweighing their fear. As the Lumina entered the gate, the interior of the Dyson construct unfolded before them. It was a vast, luminescent chamber, its walls adorned with intricate designs that seemed to hum with ancient power. At the center of the chamber was a massive stasis pod, suspended in a column of light. Inside, a human figure lay motionless, their features eerily peaceful. "That's the Keeper," Carl whispered, her voice filled with awe. Derek's scanners lit up with readings. "They're alive, barely. Their vitals are weak, but stable. The pod systems are ancient, but they're still functioning." The AI's hologram appeared beside them, its expression softer now. "Awakening the Keeper is a delicate process. They have been asleep for 500,000 years. Their mind will take time to adjust, but they are the only one who can unlock the secrets of the Harbinger." "Do it," Thelos said firmly. The AI nodded, and the stasis pod began to glow. The chamber filled with a low hum as the pod's mechanisms slowly activated. The crew watched in silence, their breaths held as the light around the pod intensified. Finally, the human's eyes opened. They were a deep, piercing blue, filled with a mixture of confusion, pain, and an almost overwhelming awareness. The Keeper's gaze swept across the chamber, landing on the crew of the Lumina. "Where am I?" the Keeper asked, their voice weak but steady. "You're aboard the Dyson Gate," Thelos said, stepping forward. "I am Captain Thelos. We've come to awaken you and stop the Harbinger." The Keeper's eyes narrowed, their expression hardening as the memories of their purpose resurfaced. "The Harbinger, it has returned." "Yes," Thelos replied, "and your fleet is ready to fight. But we need your guidance." The Keeper straightened, their frail body seeming to gain strength as they spoke. Humanity's legacy was never meant to be a weapon. It was meant to inspire. If the galaxy is to survive the Harbinger, it must stand united. But unity is not achieved through power alone. It is achieved through understanding. As the Keeper's words resonated through the chamber, the Harbinger's energy pulsed violently, sending shockwaves across the void. The battle was imminent, and the galaxy's fate rested on the decisions of those who stood in its defense. Thelos extended a hand toward the Keeper. "Will you help us?" The Keeper looked at him, their expression unreadable. Then, with a nod, they stepped forward. "Together, we will finish what humanity began." Humanity's return. The Lumina emerged from the Dyson Gate alongside the awakened Keeper, their presence a stark contrast to the chaos brewing outside. The Harbinger's form grew ever more menacing, a swirling mass of darkness and energy that seemed to defy the very laws of existence. Around it, the human fleet held its ground, glowing with a quiet but unrelenting resolve. The Keeper stood on the Lumina's bridge, their posture regal despite the weight of their millennia-long slumber. Their voice, calm and commanding, resonated across the ship. The Harbinger is not merely an enemy. It is entropy incarnate, a force that thrives on division and fear. If the galaxy is to survive, we must fight not with weapons alone, but with purpose. Thelos watched the Keeper, a mix of awe and determination in his eyes. How do we stop something like that? The Keeper's piercing blue eyes locked onto him. "We don't destroy it. We contain it, together." Before Thelos could respond, the Harbinger surged forward, launching a torrent of energy blasts toward the human fleet. The ships responded in perfect unison, their shields interlocking to absorb the onslaught. It was a breathtaking display of coordination, but even the legendary human fleet could only hold out for so long. "Captain," Carell shouted, her voice tinged with urgency. "The fleet's power reserves are draining. They can't maintain this formation indefinitely." The Keeper stepped forward, their expression resolute. "Then we give them something to believe in." With a gesture, the Keeper accessed the luminous systems, transmitting a message across the galaxy. It was a call to arms, a plea for unity that resonated far beyond the battlefield. To all species of the galaxy, hear this. The Harbinger is a threat to us all. For eons, we have been divided by fear and greed, but now we must stand together. Humanity's legacy was not one of conquest, but of hope. Join us, and let us prove that together we are stronger than the darkness. The message spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the galaxy. On distant worlds, leaders and warriors paused, listening to the Keeper's words. Some hesitated, but others acted, inspired by the courage of a species long thought extinct. As the call was answered, ships from countless alien factions began to arrive. The galactic fleet was a patchwork of designs and technologies, but it moved with a newfound purpose. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy stood united. The final battle. The combined fleet of humanity and the galaxy formed a massive defensive sphere around the Dyson Gate. The Harbinger, sensing the threat, unleashed its full fury. Beams of energy tore through the void, shattering smaller ships and testing the resolve of the defenders. On the Lumina, Fellows coordinated with the Keeper and the human fleet's eye. Their attacks are relentless, he said, gripping the edge of his console. How can we turn the tide? The Keeper's gaze remained steady. The Harbinger feeds on chaos. If we disrupt its cycle, we weaken it. Using the data from the Dyson Gate, the Keeper devised a plan. The combined fleet would focus its firepower on the Harbinger's core, a point of instability that pulsed like a dying star. At the same time, the human fleet would project a containment field, using the Dyson Gate's energy to trap the Harbinger within the void. The plan required precision and sacrifice. Fellows knew the odds were slim, but he also knew there was no other choice. Relay the plan to the fleet, he ordered. We move on my mark. Unity in action. As the fleet executed the plan, the galaxy's diverse technologies worked in harmony. Illyrian ships provided cover for the human fleet's containment field, while other species launched diversionary attacks to draw the Harbinger's attention. The Dyson Gate began to glow brighter, its energy pulsing in rhythm with the fleet's movements. Inside the Lumina, the Keeper monitored the battle, their expression a mix of focus and quiet hope. We're close, they said, but the Harbinger is adapting. The Harbinger, sensing the trap, lashed out with unprecedented force. Entire squadrons were vaporized, and the containment field began to waver. The Lumina shook violently as a blast struck its shields, sending the crew tumbling. Captain, Derek shouted, the Dyson Gate systems are overloading. If it collapses, the containment field will fail. Fellows turned to the Keeper. What do we do? The Keeper's face hardened with resolve. We must stabilize the gate manually. I will go. No, Fellows said firmly. You've been humanity's guide. Its voice. If you're lost. The Keeper interrupted him, their tone gentle but unyielding. Humanity's legacy is not tied to one person. It lives in all of us, in every species that chooses hope over fear. Trust me. The Keeper's sacrifice. With Thalas's reluctant approval, the Keeper left the bridge, entering the heart of the Dyson Gate. Inside, they interfaced directly with the ancient systems, channeling their energy to stabilize the field. As they worked, the Harbinger's attacks intensified, sensing the end was near. Back on the Lumina, Fellows coordinated the final assault. Focus all fire on the core. Protect the gate at all costs. The fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, their combined firepower piercing the Harbinger's defenses. The containment field closed around the entity, trapping it within the gate's vortex. With a final surge of energy, the Harbinger let out a deafening roar, its form imploding into the void. As the Dyson Gate sealed, the battlefield fell silent. The Harbinger was gone, and the galaxy had prevailed. But at a cost. The Keeper's voice echoed one last time through the luminous comms. The galaxy is yours now. Do not squander it. And then, they were gone. A new era, In the aftermath, the galaxy mourned the losses but celebrated the unity that had saved them. The human fleet, its purpose fulfilled, returned to its dormant state, a silent reminder of what had been achieved. On the Lumina, Thelos stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. "Humanity may have left, but their spirit remains," he said. "And now it's up to us to honor it." The crew nodded, their hearts heavy but hopeful. The galaxy had been given a second chance, and this time, they would fight to protect it, not as divided species, but as one.